Hey everybody, it's old Big Daddy. Welcome to the Getting Outdoors podcast number 253. And to say I am honored would be a understatement. I have two of the pioneer outdoor broadcasters in the world, including the voice of the Bassmasters, Mr. Don Day and Mr. Rick Redman. And I think you started Venture Outdoors. When did you start the TV?
My first endeavor was in 2000, and we did what was it?
Name of your show?
Yeah.
Can you remember the name of your show?
Yeah.
He did his own show.
Central Alabama Outdoors.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
And I did it for 5 years, and kind of, that's a big heavy burden for one man to do. So
Well, what he needed somebody real pretty,
There you go.
and so he called me, and I came aboard.
I like to catch and kill, and I don't have a good voice, and I don't like doing the interviews, and I don't like doing, talking. So I talk like all the time, but I don't like it. So anyway, he came along. He can't fish worth crap, and he looks like a face for radio, but he has got a nice voice.
Yeah, he really does. He really does. Now you did that show, Central Alabama Outdoors, and then
5 years.
Then you went to Venture Outdoors.
We started that in 2005 or 6.
Yeah, right
That's about when I started the radio show.
Yeah, we did that and did it for till through 2017. Then we just got old and broke up. And
I remember the show that I remember the most was Venture Outdoors, when y'all came down here and went hog hunting with Cousin Champion and Tater Bug Champion.
We talked about that driving down.
we had all the reminiscing going on that back there, heading down the highway.
It's the funniest thing, and we've talked about this in at Lions clubs and things like that because it's funny as crap. I mean,
nobody can appreciate. You can't really explain a hog hunt in South Alabama unless you actually go there. You can't tell anybody about it. You can't really explain it, can you?
Kurt Gant used to tell that story, and I'd read this double because I know all those guys. I know what y'all getting into.
They would tell you we was gonna meet them right at daylight, so we stayed at some old haunted house down there in Vredenburg, and like froze to death and scared to death and everything else. So we get out there, and our guide and everything, he says, "Well, they ought to be here in a minute," and I'm like, I mean, how many does it take? And I'm thinking 4 or 5. Well, we looked up and saw what we thought was a funeral procession coming up the road. I mean, it went on for a quarter of a mile. It must have been 13 trucks and all, and they drive up, and my God, it was on from there, on like Donkey Kong, man.
I remember Kurt telling me how he had to hang on to that 4-wheeler with that camera.
Oh, bless his heart. I don't know how he did it.
They tracked them dogs with GPS.
Yeah.
And they'd have a dog. And yet the reason they knew they were bayed, for you folks out there never hunted like that all of the little dots on the computer screen, they'd just be going round and round.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be going everywhere. So they got them bayed. So if it was a quarter of a mile away and there wasn't nothing but briars and thickets and everything, that's where they went, right through them all.
Is that show archived anywhere,
Yeah.
Rick? Is it some way?
Yeah,
I'd love to get a copy of it.
It should
Put on
be
my
on-
Facebook
It
page.
should be on the.
Yeah, we can make that happen.
Yeah, I think we'll make it happen. Should be somewhere out there.
Yeah, I'd love to. I tell you, and I want to see who was with them because it was an entourage.
Hey, let me tell you about this, Big Daddy. We finally got a big old hog, and we were hooing and gnawing about it and all that kind of stuff. And I talked to old Tater Bug.
Mhm.
He ain't a big talker. So I go up there and they said, "Don, go up there." And he said, "Go up there and talk to him about it." And I said, first thing I did, I was trying to be cute. I said, Tater Bug, let me ask you this. Are you any kin to tater salad? And he said, no. That was it. That was it. I said, well, let's go on back to the hog.
I did a podcast, probably the only podcast he'll ever do was with Tater Bug, telling stories. He used to hunt on the back of a mule. That's how he hunted.
I believe it.
And it was he is the real deal.
Oh, no question about that. Yep.
But I hope we can find that show, and I would love to share it with everybody.
It's a piece of work.
Yeah,
All right, y'all, like I said, I'm honored to have Don Day and Rick Redman in here from the old Venture Outdoors. Let's go back to Venture Outdoors because I
Okay.
think that's what everybody y'all had a really, and we'll talk about your real relationship with Ray Scott, but Ray Scott was a regular on Venture Outdoors. Talk about that. You put something up on your Facebook page
yeah.
the other day about Ray
Yeah.
singing or something.
Thanks to Don, because I've been knowing each other from the Bass days.
Yeah.
You know,
I first met Ray in the 1980s.
Yeah.
So my
long time back.
actually, it might have been 79 when I met him, but goes back a long way. And Ray, to his credit, and to he kind of, I don't know, he adopted us, but he liked us both.
Yeah.
And when we decided we wanted to start doing some fishing shows and finding ponds and lakes that we
Mhm.
knew we could catch fish for the camera, we just figured, well, let's just call Ray. And Ray said, well, sure, come on out here. Well, we did a bunch of shows with Ray.
Oh
out there.
yeah.
And you
At his
know,
place.
back in that time, you know, he wouldn't hardly let nobody fish
Yeah,
that
that's right.
lake. I
Yeah.
mean, his buddies, like, you know, his fishing buddies
And the president.
and the presidents, you know,
Yeah.
but he liked Don so much that I really think he just said, yeah, y'all. And pretty much, I don't say we had an open invite, but we made a lot of shows out there, and they were fun. And I won't ever forget one time I was with Trip Weldon at a classic, not a classic, but a BASS event up in Chicago. Remember when he was at
Oh,
Chicago,
yeah.
Soldier Field? I was
Soldier
up there that
Field,
week.
right? Yeah.
And we had dinner one night at a hotel, and me and Trip and some of the boat crew was out there, and in walks Bill Dance.
Mm-hmm.
And Pooley was there
Yeah.
with us. And
Pooley Dawson.
so Pooley and
Yep.
Bill, they knew each other. They got up and hugged and all that. That's one of those priceless things that if you're a fisherman,
Yeah.
especially if you've got any age on you at all,
Yeah.
have Bill Dance come in, and we sat there for hours talking about the old times with Pooley, who was worked for Ray Scott and was on the beginning and with him. And I laughed till I like to die. And we finally, I actually talked to Bill a little bit before we left, and I said, you know, let me ask you something. You know, you've made a living fishing, obviously. And I said, any keys or anything like that? And he said, well, people want to see fish caught and a lot of big fish caught.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't do
Pretty
that
simple.
on these big lakes. He said, I've made a living fishing private lakes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And he said, people don't care. He said,
No.
these tournament guys may, you know, think you cheating, but he said that your average guy just wants to see you catch fish.
That's right. Joe TV man out there, Joe Fisherman out there wants to see you catch big fish and lots of them.
So we've tried to have some, you know, private ponds where we could talk about how we're catching them, you know, what baits we're using, and catch them.
Early on, Big Daddy, one of the problems we ran into when I started doing the show with Rick is my angling expertise ain't nowhere near his.
Well, you know what I say about that? That adds flavor to the show.
It had to, because, you know, and Kurt Gant, you mentioned Kurt a while ago, our videographer, he was always there to make sure that when I got hung in a tree, Kurt was filming it, and I'm trying to get my lure out of the tree the whole time.
If we could make 2 or 3 blooper videos from Venture Outdoors, I believe we could sell them for $15 a piece, because we watch them still today.
Have you got a YouTube channel? You need to start your YouTube channel and put them all up.
We need to. We're trying to.
Now we're gonna talk about it. Y'all fixing to venture into this live streaming, so we're gonna talk about it in a minute. But I want to go back to the Venture Outdoors show. How long did y'all do it? From
2005 through 2017.
So that's a lot of shows.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the ones that besides the hog hunting with Tater Bug and Ray Scott fishing on his lake. Talk about some of the most memorable.
One of those.
Yeah.
Skydiving, paintball, fishing, hunting.
We did everything.
Hiking,
we
camping.
almost named that show 2 Old Fat Men Fishing. It just didn't have the flavor that we needed, you know, but that's kind of what it ought to be.
Yeah.
We did all kind of stuff, and he he shamed me into jumping out of an airplane. Not a perfectly good airplane, like people say. Well, you would jump out of a perfect. Well, no, you didn't see this plane.
It was rattling.
Yeah.
We couldn't wait to get out of it, as a matter of fact.
We walked up to the pilot. He looked like he was 12. Had a little little
Flip-flops
on, and he had a parachute on. I thought he was going to jump out the plane with us. And I said, you been skydiving long? He said, no, I ain't never skydived. And I'm like, holy moly. And I said, well, he said, oh, no, I'm the pilot. I'm a student up here at Auburn, but I'm the pilot. And this plane looked like it had been painted 15 times. I saw some duct tape, visible duct tape. And we got all packed into that thing. And he said, now, look, it's going to take us 20 minutes to get up to 12,000 feet where we're going to jump. Round and round and round in about a mile circle. And I'm thinking, 20 minutes? He said, we'll be lucky to get up there at all. Look at this plane. He said, that's why I wear a parachute.
Oh, man.
Plus, it was loaded with people. So there's all that weight in there, too, you know. So
it's
did y'all have GoPros in, or were you?
No, we had
they had a guy that would out. The matter of fact, the videographer for the jump school, he had a camera on his helmet that he could operate with his mouth. He could blow into it, make it snap pictures, and he had another video camera. So what he would do, he'd get on the outside first, hang off of the strut,
just hanging there,
and looking back in the thing at us. You hadn't done this yet, have you? You need to do it.
No.
And then when you let go, he goes with you, and so he's like right in front of you. You're this close to each other. He's got a camera right in your face like this, and you're flying out, and your lips are flopping around everywhere. And then when they finally say pull your ripcord, everybody peels out away from each other so you don't mess up.
But that's where you get your video from. Yeah. And our guy was Mike Mills. He's an ex-military. He's just a class guy, loves the outdoors. And hey, Mike, I hope you're watching this. And he was our guy that and a guy named Daniel Edwards kind of talked us into it. He shamed me because I wasn't going to do it. And he told me I was a sissy, in other words. And because he had done a static line jump.
I'd already done some jumps, yeah.
Wow. But it's great. I'd do it again tomorrow if it wasn't cold and I could.
Now, y'all fish a lot. The Coosa River is y'all's primary.
Coosa, right? Especially from Wetumpka up toward the dam.
Talk about that fishery up there. And has it changed any like our fishery has? Talk about the Coosa River fishery.
If you don't know, downtown Wetumpka, where from there to Jordan Dam is 6-7 miles, and you go through 3 or 4 waterfalls. The water level at the dam is X, whatever that is. At Wetumpka, it's about 10 or 11 or 12 feet lower than that. So you're going downhill 6 miles downhill with waterfalls and uphill if you're going. And I've had a jet boat for a long time, and I first went up there, I don't know, back in 91 or something. So I've been doing it a long time. And that's where I like to play fish. I had the big boats and tournament fish, but I like to go up there because it's one of those priceless trips. And Don went, our first show was in 2005, was up in the Coosa in the rocks. We just call it going up in the rocks. And so it's a great fishery. It's full of spotted bass. It was better 10, 15 years ago, no question. But there's so many kayakers that go up there now, and that's great because they love it, and it's their water too. But so many of them 10 years ago, they wasn't fishing. Now a lot of those kayakers are fishing.
That's big time.
And now look, to their credit, they don't keep them and all that, but they're still catching fish. And it's a little harder to catch them like we used to, but
just like any good angler, though, he's got certain honey holes that he likes to go to, and we'd make a little milk run every time we go up the river, whether we're filming or not. But we'd make certain stops, and just about every time we stop, he said, "There's going to be a fish right by that rock." Zoom one up in there, and there's that bass. So,
and I remember y'all had a good relationship with Boyd Duckett when he first got started. Yeah, y'all were using all his stuff. I remember y'all went through his shop up there, and I cuss Boyd Duckett till this day.
You do?
I do, because he left Demopolis and moved to Gunnersville. He should have stayed
Listen,
in
Should have
Demopolis.
stayed here.
I don't want to just take over the conversation,
Yeah.
but Boyd, that was in 08. We hooked up with Boyd. In 08 was a recession, remember?
Mhm.
And guess who got fired from Pure Fishing, which was Abu Garcia and Berkeley and Trilene. That was a big company that, well, Pure Fishing was one of my sponsors,
Mhm.
you know. Well, I wasn't real high up there for pro chart. So
He dropped you.
a bunch of us got fired. Boyd Duckett got fired by
Mhm.
Pure Fishing
After winning the classic,
after
in
winning the
2007.
classic and $800,000
Yeah.
in 2007. He got fired. So I'm like, well, I didn't need it, but you know, you need if you're going to fish for a TV show, you need some sponsors. And so I heard Boyd was going into the rod business. I called him up and I said, look, you know, we both out of a job
Yeah.
with Pure Fishing. He said, yep. He said, I got my first batch of rods coming in 2009 something. And we went over when they got there. Don and I went over and spent the day, videoed,
Yeah, I
filmed.
remember that show.
And by the fact, we went to lunch that day and he told us his vision of Major League Fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure did.
And
He told us.
we left that lunch and we got in the car and we both looked at each other with,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And
He did the
obviously,
same thing. He came on my radio show and announced it, you know, and told us what he's fixing
Yeah.
to do. Told us about how many hours of social media he was going to film, how they were going to weigh them and release them.
yeah.
You know, I mean,
hard not to laugh, wasn't it?
you know, really, I was worried. I was wanting him to come to Demopolis because it's not but what 50 or 60 anglers. I was wanting him to come to Demopolis Miller's Ferry because we can handle that kind of.
You could.
But we don't have the internet. You got to have impeccable internet to do one of those
That's the
Major
deal.
League
Yeah.
Fishing shows.
Yeah, that's
But
the
anyway,
Exactly right.
he was instrumental in. I remember those shows, and I remember those white rods. Made me go buy one. I can tell you that.
Well, I guarantee you, I got, you know, I use Abu Garcia. I've used all of their products and I've used other products. I've had people give me rods and say, try this, you know,
Mhm.
and I have, and I'm not Don. I could give him one from Walmart that you could bend it double and it wouldn't break. And I could give him a Boyd Duckett one. He would know the difference. But I do.
ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with it.
But and so
I look for years. I kept telling him, we're gonna stop all this. You can do all this bass fishing business in the front of the boat. I'm gonna sit back here with a brim buster and 50 crickets. You just leave me alone. And I threatened to do it, but one of these days I'm still gonna do it.
He tried it one time. He was gonna go and he said, I'm just gonna fish in the back of the boat and I'm gonna brim fish while you bass fishing. I said, go on with your bad self.
Yeah.
And I got on that trolling motor and I was going about 8 miles an hour down the bank, you know, just going.
My crickets on the top of the water stood skittering along.
How's that brim fishing coming up for you?
Hey, y'all, we're talking with Rick Redman and Don Day of the classic TV show Venture Outdoors. And we're going to get some archive. I'm going to find that hog hunting one.
Yeah, man. You got.
Let me ask you this, Don. Now, me and you did a podcast back in May of 22 when Ray Scott passed away. I struggled. I said, who can I call? I said, I thought about Hank Weldon. I thought about Trip Weldon. You know, I thought about some of the elite anglers, you know, that I knew, like Greg Vincent and people like that.
Yeah.
But I said, who knows Ray Scott probably better than anybody? And that's when I called Don.
Yeah.
And me and Don, we've been knowing each other a long time.
That's right.
And he graciously, and it was a great podcast. But now, during how many years were you the MC for the Bassmasters Classic?
Well, when I came aboard with Bass in 80, they weren't doing any kind of pre-show stuff before the Classic. It was just a weigh-in is all it was. They just went to the, you know, when they finished fishing.
Have you been watching that show they doing now called Cast Boys?
That's awesome. Yeah, that is freaking awesome.
Well, what happened was Ray had sold Bass along in the mid to late 80s. Somebody sold. Helen Severe
Helen Severe, yeah.
became the honcho at Bass. She was second command before that, but she took over. She said, I want y'all to do something. She tapped the late Dave Ellison to do the job. I want somebody to do a pre-show before the weigh-in. Something, anything, laser, whatever you've come up with. So Dave found a laser light company and brought them in. And then we had some music stuff, and he had me in a tuxedo. And I was up there to do all the emceeing part of it before the thing started. So I would introduce the wives of the anglers and the big shot people that were there, the politicians that were there, whatever. And so once that was all done, then I would bring Ray on, and Ray would do the weigh-in. So that's how it started.
Well, I was in the audience. I don't know when this was. It was in the 90s when you came on the stage on a zip line.
Zip
That's
line.
right.
I did zip lines actually, Big Daddy. I think we did. I did one coming in one direction one year. Next year, another direction. One coming straight down out of the ceiling.
Yeah.
And so he always wanted me to come in a different way. So it was in a rocket ship or on a zip line. That first zip line might have been the one that they had pyrotechnics on my heels of my shoes. And right before I came sliding down that zip line, they lit the pyrotechnics, and I had fire coming out of my heels back there. Here I am in a tuxedo with fire out of my heels.
And the greatest entrance ever was when Ray came in on that elephant.
Everybody talks about the elephant. And Ray told me later, he said, man, that damn thing stunk.
I did an interview with Dewey Kendrick. He was the tournament director.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he didn't have much good to say about that elephant.
No, they had a hard time finding the elephant, keeping it out of the way of everybody until we got ready to use it. So that was a big problem we had.
My favorite of all, and every time they had a classic up at, Lay or whatever in the event in Birmingham, I'd go. And my favorite thing was when Ray was in, they got at the Civic Center, you got your regular weigh-in stage on this end, but on the other end, maybe 60 yards away, they got another stage. I don't know what it's for up there. So Don says, welcome to Ray Scott. And on the far stage down there, lights go up, big smoke bomb goes off, and the floodlights go on. There's Ray in his blue outfit and his white cowboy hat and all that kind of stuff. And so Don says, everything they talk and yap a little bit. And Don says, well, come on down, Ray. And then he says, well, how are we going to get Ray down here? And all of a sudden, boom, right on the stage.
I remember that.
Lights, smoke, and all of a sudden there's Ray.
That was his brother, wasn't it?
Yeah. His brother.
Yeah.
His brother looks just like him.
Looked like a magic trip.
Yeah.
We had him move transport.
He looks just like him, the same size and everything. And all of a sudden, and I didn't know what the trick was, but Don told me years later.
Ray was funny. We had some politician somewhere we were at that wanted to get up on stage, and he was a Democrat, and Ray wasn't no Democrat.
Yeah, he sure was.
So Ray said, right before the guy came up, Ray said, Don, you go up there and interview him. I said, Ray, I don't even know him. He said, well, you get up there. I ain't doing it. I ain't talking to him. So Ray made me get up on stage and interview this politician. And to this day, I don't know who it is, but I talked to him on stage for a while, and I didn't know what the heck I was going to ask him or anything, but we finally got through that. I told him later, I said, man, you don't hang me out to dry like that. That's wrong. That's wrong. You shouldn't do that.
Well, now, did y'all ever incorporate the Bassmaster Classics into the Adventure Outdoor Show?
I don't know if we actually incorporated
it. We went up there, they have a show, the outdoor show where we went up there several times. And just walk around and talk to people. Right. And the most interesting, few years back, there was the Berkeley booth and all, and the Trilene and all that. Well, Hank Parker's there and Bill Dance. At the booth at the same time.
Both those guys.
Oh, I have.
Yeah.
Well, we almost had to call the law. I mean, it just got out of hand because those two are crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, they're nuts. And it was more fun than a barrel of monkeys, and it. But we never did, Ray's been on there, we've been out at his place, and we talked to him. We had him singing one time.
Yeah, you put that video up.
Ray can sing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just says, "Well, I don't need another job."
Well, I'm so glad that the organization now is remembering him with those TV programs. I got them all, and I watched every one of them. And a new one will air this week, I think. And,
well, it's so good that somebody had the forethought years and years ago to save all that footage, as much of it from all the classics over the years, and Ray doing his thing. And Ray was a really funny, caring, smart man.
He was a promoter, no doubt about that.
Nobody like him. And I'll never forget. I think I told you when you interviewed me back in 2022. One of my favorite things that Ray was so good at was doing that emceeing the classic weigh-in. And the day that he didn't do it, the first classic that came along where he was sitting in the audience, here's me, Tracy Bird, Hank Parker, and Fish Fishburne up on the weigh-in stage trying to do Ray Scott's job. And I'll never forget, I looked over on the stand and I looked down, I see Ray sitting there with Susan, his wife, and his entourage. And Ray was just kind of sitting there smiling at me. And I told him later, I said, Ray, here's 4 of us up there trying to do your job. And we were not doing a very good job of doing your job. He was so magically good at it.
He was. It's no doubt about it.
You know, put it in today's terminology. What do you think? And you should know, Big Daddy, what do you think the outdoor industry, fishing part, what do you think is spent on that in a year?
Oh, it's $4 billion in Alabama.
Yeah, just in this state.
Yeah.
Billions.
Yeah.
With a B, billions.
Yeah.
And now, it would have happened without Ray Scott, but it just so happened it happened because of Ray.
Well,
and I got to mention this, that was a professional professional bass fishing organization.
Yeah.
What Kay Donaldson has done in 10 years with the Alabama Bass Trail, an amateur, is unfriggin' believable.
It really, she's amazing. She is amazing. I'm glad you brought her up.
Yeah.
I follow her on Facebook, and of course I follow the tournaments. Well, she has just done a jam up job, and
she did. She started the South and the North Division, and we had the first 3 tournaments she did on Miller's Ferry. And our facilities were less than adequate for a 160 boat tournament dimension. And let me tell you, she made it happen. Yeah. She had a crew put together. I wish I'd have had a drone then when she did the first tournament on Miller's Ferry. The way that they parked those 160 boats looked like the Talladega racetrack. She had those guys parking them like that.
Yeah.
And now, 10 years later, they're going to be on Logan Martin this weekend with Alabama 100 Sunday. They moved it to. But, Buddy, she has done a great job.
I emceed a few of her tournaments over the years.
Yeah, she is. I think, didn't you come to Camden? You did.
I did. I came down here. Sure did. Yep.
And I said she did 3 in Camden. You emceed 1, Fish Fishburne emceed 1, and Robbie Floyd emceed 1.
Of course, Robbie was her main announcer for all those years, and he's a great friend too. I always like Robbie, but I'm glad you mentioned.
But Ray Scott started the professional bass fishing. Well, actually, the tournament bass fishing, but Kay took the amateur division, and what she's done with it is just unbelievable.
When she opens up registration for the upcoming year, it's done.
I remember. Hey, Don, I remember she used to call me. I ain't got but 60 boats signed up.
Help me out.
12 minutes now when she opens it up. And got a waiting list, no telling.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I got friends that.
And the tournament itself is smooth.
It is.
All the people that fish it, they all brag on how well it's run.
Absolutely.
And that goes to Kay Donaldson, 100% leadership. Yep. She ain't no doubt who's in charge on tournament day. Ain't no doubt.
Well, Pam Martin Wells and her husband have fished that trail for a lot of years too, and they're big friends and all that. We've had Pam on our show a number of times over the years too. She's a wonderful lady, and what a trooper she is, and what a great asset she's been to the bass fishing world. From the female side of fishing.
And I think we was at the Alabama Wildlife Federation pavilion last time. I was on the show with you and Adventure Outdoors when the Crappie Masters
That's right.
came.
Yeah, in Millbrook.
Yeah, and
That's right.
we did
Yeah.
a little
Mhm.
interview up there.
Yeah.
And that was when Crappie Masters broke all the records on the
Yeah.
Alabama River up there out of Cooter's Pond.
Man.
You know, until they went to the Granada. But Alabama River crappie fishing's come a long way.
Yeah.
Also, but
Maybe
anyway,
those
Yeah.
anglers were saying how much they had no idea that the Alabama River could produce like it
Yeah.
did.
Ken Tucker, Sportsman Showcase. Remember that?
I do.
Mhm.
Archie Phillips.
Archie,
That's
what
who
a,
started me. That's
what
who
a
started
piece of
me.
work, Archie
Yeah.
Phillips.
That fish mounted by Archie probably.
That was Morris Lipman, man. But I remember I was in the bait shop business in '79, and Archie Phillips came in the store with about a 6-8 pound bass mounted, and he said, "Hey, can I hang this up in your bait shop?" I said, "Hell yeah!" You know, I had Archie Phillips taxidermist
Yeah.
with his phone number, and I hung it up. He said, "Now, if you ever want anybody to have a fish mounted," he said, "let me tell you how to get it to me in Birmingham." I said, "How you going to get a fish to you in Birmingham?" He said, "I'm finna show you." He said, "Take one of these old Montgomery advertisers." That's when you had a newspaper every day.
Yeah.
He said, "Wrap the fish up, you know, about an inch, you know, and leave it in the freezer for 2 days. 2 days and let it get good and frozen. Then go down to the bus station and put it on the early bus going to Birmingham and send it to me." And that's the way we did it. We did it.
Worked.
That was before it was UPS. And
Speaking of that, and let me back up a second to Ray Scott. When we
Yeah.
went to Iraq back in 2004,
Mhm.
one of Saddam Hussein's palaces had a pond in front of it. And our guys in uniform, men and women in uniform, would go over there and fish because there was some weird looking fish in there. Well, somebody caught one about that big, looked like it maybe 4 or 5 pounds, and we couldn't figure out what it was. We have foggiest idea. Well, Ray wanted to keep it and bring it home. And so his people kept saying, "Ray, we can't keep this fish. I mean, no way in the world we're going to be able to keep it wrapped up. And we're still traveling all over Iraq doing shows." And he said, "Well, I want that fish. I want it frozen, and I want to take it home with me." So Jim Kent, the Ray's right-hand man, I think Jim set about trying to preserve that fish until we got ready to come up. Somehow along the way, before we got back home, that fish got lost.
Mm.
So I think Mr. Kent's finally figured, "I'm not going to take this fish back through the mail back to Alabama from Iraq." So it kind of got conveniently lost somewhere.
Big Daddy, that was in 04.
04, yeah.
04. And of course that war was going on
Yeah,
big time back
yeah.
then. And Don he's such a soft heart.
He's humble. is what
He's
he
a
is.
very humble guy. But Ray called him to go to
Yeah.
Iraq with him. And Ray was doing it as what you would call a USO kind of.
Mhm.
He would go around and tell stories to the troops over there and give them some lures and things like that. And Don was going to help him MC and all that. And they were over there when helicopters were being shot down and everything else. And that was there. So that was one of, and we did a show on that one time.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, we did.
Didn't we do that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was that I know him as well as I do anybody. And that was one of his highlights
Yeah.
of his career
I
is
bet it
going
was.
over there. And they went by the White House and just told old George W. Hey, and we'll see you later. And just a good send off.
It was pretty amazing. It was an amazing trip. And everybody knows, and both you guys know, and many of you know as well. I get to talk about that. I get too emotional. So
Yeah, well,
it's
I can
it's-
understand that.
yeah.
I can. Well, guys, I tell you what, it's been great going down memory lane. But let's flip the switch. Y'all came down here today to look at my operation.
We did.
Y'all fixing to maybe get back into it a little bit. Talk
Rick-
about that, Rick.
Well, Rick called me and said, "Hey, what do you know about podcasts?" I said, "I don't know diddly squat about podcasts. I do know some people that do it though." So Rick said, "Well, he don't know anything either. We were barely okay with the TV show because all we had to do is just be ourselves. And I've got a little audio experience and a little bit of TV experience. But anyway, we talked about the podcast, and Rick said, let's do it. So I found up, let's call Big Daddy. He's got a successful podcast operation. So we may wind up doing this. We're not real sure yet, Rick. Is
We're
that right?
going to go explore it. We don't
Yeah.
want to do it if we don't think we can do it right and entertain some people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But for whatever reason, a few people over the years found us entertaining. I don't know why.
Besides ourselves, we think
Yeah.
we're just wonderful.
Yeah, well.
Well, I
I-
tell you what, if you've got some of those old shows archived and you can incorporate them in a
Yeah.
podcast, man, that'll be awesome. That'll be awesome. But
kind of plan on doing
don't
that too,
let
yeah.
that podcast intimidate you, because I dropped my 252 second podcast yesterday, and 251 podcasts ago, I didn't even know what a podcast was. So I was in the same.
I
We're
just
starting-
learned to spell it.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. So he started just like we're talking
Yeah,
about starting.
absolutely.
But I like this, what we're doing now.
This is nice.
Well, now what we're doing now, we are recording it live on StreamYard, and we're recording the audio. Now I'll release this audio on Thursday around 10 o'clock as a podcast that you can listen to on your wherever you get your podcast. And I'm also going to put this
the video
the
section.
video
Mhm.
on my YouTube channel,
Okay.
so you can watch it on YouTube.
Okay.
Well, we're meeting with my
Was she like?
she's like my real
Daughter-in-law.
daughter, but she's my
Yeah.
stepdaughter.
Yeah.
You're a producer.
No,
Yeah.
no, well, she's
Well,
gonna be
she
somewhat of a
probably,
producer.
yeah. She's the one that
Yeah.
convinced me a couple of weeks ago, because she's in this area with her job or
Mhm.
whatever. And she has told me, she said, y'all really need to consider this. Y'all
Yeah,
could do
I
well
agree.
and have a good time. And I'm retired. He's been retired, what, 60, 70 years now? You
Yeah.
hadn't done nothing. You had never had a real job. I mean, what, talking on the radio? How hard is that? So
Anybody can do that.
anybody can do that. So we're really going to work at it hard. Now we may be calling you a little
Oh,
bit
yeah.
more,
I'm-
and
You consider me, I'll be on your board of free advisors.
All right. Got it.
and a guest whenever.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, we're looking forward to it.
I
Thanks for
think you're going to do good. I really do. And I'll help you promote it, and we'll get it out there. And
Now, folks, let me just say this right now. Big Daddy Lawler didn't have to say yes to us.
No.
We came down here to pick his brain, find out what we could do if we could do this, and what we needed to have to start the equipment, the people, the things you have to do to get this thing off and running. He didn't have to do this. So out of the goodness of his heart and being a friend, he did it. So we appreciate it a bunch.
Well-
I don't want what we do to detract from what you do.
heck no. I
So-
mean, the outdoors, and all of us are the same way.
Yeah.
All we want to do is promote our natural resource assets.
There you
I
go.
have seen, I'm 72 years old,
Well, I'll be 75 next month.
and
He's the old man of the group.
yeah, I have seen so many economic developers throw money up in the air and watch it blow away.
Yeah.
And not taking advantage of our natural resource assets. It's one of our biggest economic impacts in the Alabama Black Belt. And finally, after years and years and years of pounding the podium, they are finally realizing what the hunting and fishing brings into the area as far as economic
What a
impact.
resource
Yes,
we've got.
yes,
And
absolutely.
there's no
Fishing,
better.
and I've told people all the time, you think about black belt, you're thinking big deer, and
Yeah.
and it's just a great deer hunting and hunting all overall. It's as good a fishing as you can get.
Absolutely.
This state, you can go from saltwater fishing to freshwater fishing, including trout,
Mhm.
all in bass and brim and crappie and everything from in
3
one-
hours.
Yeah, basically.
Absolutely.
And some of the best deer hunting in the world. And we mentioned Ray a while ago about talking about fishing, but Ray was a big proponent of growing big birdie deer too,
That's
because
right.
he had his deer feed business going on.
Oh yeah, I remember when he started the
Whitetail
Whitetail
Institute.
Institute. Yeah.
Yep.
We didn't go. We went on his 100-acre it was a 100-acre high fence.
Yeah, yeah,
It's his
yeah.
little farm,
yeah.
little play place. And he says, y'all can go hunt all you want to. You can't kill nothing, but you can go hunt all you want to. So we said, well, let's just go make a show,
Mhm.
and we'll just video a bunch of big old deer running around,
We
you
had
know,
some-
like
we had a ball.
pogo sticking on around. And he showed us some pictures of some whoppers. I mean, big whoppers. And I'm not a big proponent, yay or nay, for high fence. I don't care. But we spent a full 2 days there looking for a big deer. Now, we saw plenty of deer. We saw plenty of little bucks. We ain't seen one of them big bucks yet on 100 acres. Now, that ain't.
They were there.
They were there.
No doubt
Just
about it.
didn't want to play with us. That's all.
Well, and talking about marketing the state as a destination for hunting and fishing, that's what the Alabama Bass Trail was actually made for.
To do. For the state.
And what a great job they have done. They have put it on the map, and it is. I don't think anybody knows how many tournament trails, tournament bass clubs, organized tournaments on just Millis Ferry, just Demopolis,
just this near
Millis Ferry, Selma City Marina. They just did a great upgrade on their landings, and I'm telling you, you just don't know what it means to bring not a 225 boat tournament or a 100 boat tournament, but we have 20 or 30 boat tournaments, 2 or 3 every weekend, 40 weekends out of the year. That adds up. That adds up.
That's awesome.
And everybody's taking care of the fishery too. That's one of the main things. Catch and release, and those fish are going back and getting caught again. It's amazing.
Yeah, catch and release and just good water like the Coosa chain. I started fishing Lake Jordan when I was young, real young. But my first tournament was in 1970 on Lake Jordan. And it took, there was 7 fish limit. And I think we had 30 people in our bass club. It took like 25 pounds to win it. It still takes that today to win it. It is not diminished at all. It's more boats than ever, but it still produces.
Yep.
It's amazing. Don Day and Rick Redman.
We've had a great time with you today, man. Thank you.
This is what I love to do right here, and I appreciate y'all riding all the way down here. I'm gonna go feed you a good lunch at the Pecan today, and we're gonna see.
You buying or
I'm buying.
Rick buying?
I'm buying.
No, sir, I'm buying. You in my territory. You can buy from me when I get up.
Okay.
But anyway, I thank y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in and listening. And I tell you, we covered a whole lot.
Yeah, we did.
40 minutes. Appreciate y'all once again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.